Hello everyone, this is Erik, the Asian movie enthusiast, and this is my review of Bashing, a Japanese film from 2005 that earned some success and praise when making its film festival run back in the day. And most interestingly, this movie is based on an actual event, and it explores a topic that is a bit unique. And the website Toronto J-Film Powwow has a nice summary of this historical event. So on April 8th, 2004, 18-year-old Noriaki Imai, along with two other Japanese aid workers, were captured by insurgents in southern Iraq and held hostage for 8 harrowing days. Their captors demanded that the Japanese government pull out their 600 troops deployed in Iraq, backing up their demand with frightening video footage of Imai with a knife to his throat and the muzzle of a machine gun to his temple. The Japanese public, who had been vehemently against the deployment of troops in Iraq, picketed outside the Japanese parliament, but Prime Minister Junichiro Koizumi would not bow to public opinion, nor would he negotiate with the insurgents. Surprisingly, he didn't even meet with Imai's family, and in the end, Imai and the other two hostages were released unharmed, but only after a moderate Muslim cleric beseeched the kidnappers to do so. So this is kind of like the historic event, okay? And you might think that Bashing, if it's inspired by this event, would explore the event itself, but it does not. It specifically concerns itself with the persecution and shaming that was directed at the rescued hostages by the Japanese after they returned home. So the main character in this movie is a woman named Yuko, who volunteered to be an aid worker in Iraq and was taken hostage there. And she was freed, returned to Japan. All this occurs before the movie starts. But after being home for a while, she's subject to harassment by her own countrymen. So for example, a coworker finds internet postings denouncing her, and he spreads rumors or facts vocally amongst people, and her boss lets her go because it's creating a problem. She gets harassing phone calls every day, and even strangers on the street will just harass her, when she goes to the local convenience store. Now, a non-Japanese viewer may find this to be kind of an odd reason for persecution, but she is considered to be a humiliation by her other countrymen since she knowingly put herself in danger and required assistance from foreign nations to get rescued. And this mentality is consistent with how Japanese act within their own country. Typically, they avoid creating inconveniences for other people, but our protagonist caused a significant international issue that inconvenienced other foreign countries. So it's even worse in their eyes, right? But I find it interesting that Bashing chose to focus on that aspect specifically, and it gives us some insight into Japanese culture and some of the things that they hold dear. Another observation I had was that the internet was specifically referenced in the film way back in the mid-2000s, and it was interesting how some people were using that to weaponize their retaliation against her. It's like nothing's changed in 2 decades. But I found that to be pretty interesting that even that early in the internet's lifespan, and it was getting popular by that point, but still being used to do these types of things. Now, the lead actress, Fusako Urabe, was recently seen in the film Wheel of Fortune and Fantasy, and you may recognize her if you've seen that one. She's quite good here, and she has a few dramatic monologues near the end. There's certain actors and actresses that I kind of associate with indie films or art house films. She kind of has that vibe to her. This was directed by Masahiro Kobayashi, a director who I'm not sure if I've ever talked about on this channel, or very rarely. After I saw Bashing for the first time, it impressed me enough that I seeked out a handful of his other movies. A few were pretty good, watchable, but some of the others I thought were really boring. Not a director who excites me, so I kind of stopped my exploration of his filmography. Also, a lot of his films are just hard to find. But Bashing, I think, is definitely the best thing I've seen from him, given the sample that I was exploring. Now, I do need to emphasize that this is an old-school art house style movie, pretty slow-paced, quite modest in production values. It has a lot of, themes and interaction that it focuses on. As you can tell, most of this review is me talking about the themes, and like the character interactions instead of like, I guess a plot-based storyline, Very little visual stimulation in this film. It's not shot with a lot of flair, but it proves itself with its overall quality and themes. Perhaps a little bit on the dry side, okay, especially if you're unfamiliar with films of this kind from this era. But I enjoyed this. I think it's like just a good quality flick, and it focuses on some themes that you don't see explored that much in movies, especially when you couple that with the historical event that inspired it. So I recommend Bashing. I think it's good. If you're into like Japanese indie films from like the 2000s, of which I've covered a bunch actually, check it out. It's currently available streaming on YouTube. And as always, I'll see you next time.